Talking about thoughts of suicide, calls home to grandma, trying to get away home, and then it came to a head.
Yes.
What caused that moment?
So when I went to college and I was alone, I went very far. I went to Atlanta. I went to Board of Fashion School in Atlanta. And that was the first time ever in life that I was really left by myself. And so it is the moment where I started to really dig deep and find out why I felt so lonely in life. I had never felt so lonely like I had at the age of 18. I did not know who I was. I felt like I just disappeared in every room that I walked into because I wasn't being who I truly am. And so it became a true struggle for me. When I turned 18 and I went off to college and then I was left in my own space was when I spiraled. My depression hit me very heavy and I spiraled fast. I only made it 3 months into college and I was forced to come home because I tried to commit suicide. And on my way home, I said a very deep prayer. The night that I started crying uncontrollably, the night that I tried to take my own life and God took over my spirit and I couldn't do it, I started crying and I asked God to release me. And when I got on the train the next day to come home, because my grandmother told me to fly home, I wasn't going to be able to come home the next day and I wanted out. So she put me on the train, and when I came home, I met this guy on the train. And he sat down and I didn't know him, and he genuinely looked over at me and was like, if I kiss you on this train, the whole train will lose their mind. And I instantly knew that was the sign. Something like that had never in life happened to me. It just was like that moment where I just knew it was like, okay, Jay, you need to go home and tell everybody who you are. That's the only way that you're going to be able to survive in this world. And even though he did not kiss me on that train, of course, it just was an awakening, and it was like the sign that I knew. And we sat on the train and we talked for hours, the whole ride home. His stop was in Philly, mine was in Washington, D.C. And when I got off the train, I told all of my best friends who picked me up from the train, and instantly I felt relief. And that is the moment that my life started. So my childhood was a little complex because I had the best of both worlds. At my grandparents' house, it was very much prestige. You know, my grandparents were very big on education. You know, they took well care of me. They were very big on appearance and how you carried yourself. But my mother had very, very troubled times in my early life. So when I was a very little child, for some reason I just never felt comfortable with other guys. My grandmother would drop me off in my cousin's house. I come from a very big family. I have a lot of cousins. I would go to sleepovers and I would hide in the room and I would call and cry and want to go home because I never ever felt comfortable being amongst other guys in that atmosphere. And so as I got older and I continued, to be, it just became a real struggle for me to try to fake like I was one of the boys, because I never was one of the boys. Funny story, my Uncle Joe was a commissioner of a football team, and he put me on the football team, and we had our first game, and they put me out on this field, and I was looking around like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Like, I do not belong here. And my uncle instantly stopped the game and said, take Jay out. Jay does not belong here. Like, this is not for Jay. Jay does not belong here. And so it was like a thing that my family really knew very early on, as well as I knew very early on. But I think that they thought it was something that I would grow out of. But for me, on a spiritual side, when I was very, very young, God used to genuinely tell me that I was here to do something really big. And when I was young, that scared me because I really didn't understand what that meant. Even before I knew what a girlfriend was, a boyfriend was, I just knew that I was very different. And so in everything that I got myself into, or everything I was interested in, had to have a purpose very, very young. I didn't like to do anything that I felt didn't have a purpose when I was young. That's why I like to play and dress up, and I like to dress my cousins and hide myself in fashion because that had a purpose for me. I felt like making other people feel beautiful or making other people feel good about themselves was the God in me, very, very young. And I have genuinely built a career off of making people feel good. I am at my most high when I feel that I can see potential in others, and I make others see the potential in themselves, and they become something greater. They become something beyond what they can see for themselves. I've always had that gift.
Okay.
And so I went through life, struggling with who I was, not because I was ashamed of the way that I was, the way that I thought, the way that I talked, the way that I was, more because of the spiritual side of things. I was raised in the church. I was a church kid. I was in the choir. I was Sunday school every Sunday, Bible school every Wednesday. So I very much struggled with my sexuality and coming out with myself and being who I truly am because of my spirituality. So my transition into being a transgender was a experimental thing. I struggled with acne really, really bad when I was a teenager, and so because of that, it built a lot of insecurities for me. So I told my grandmother when I was 20 years old, I said, okay, I'm going to play with makeup because I'm tired of my skin looking the way that it is. I just want to smooth my skin out. I just want to see my skin look better. And so I started playing in makeup at 20, and then I purchased my first full lace wig because I had this thing where I wanted like the Oprah ponytail. Like I wanted like this great thick ponytail. Even though my hair is nice and beautiful and thick, I wanted my hair to just look polished and this beautiful ponytail, and I just wanted to have makeup on. And then it just kind of took a life of its own. When I got my first lace wig and put makeup on my face at the age of 20 was the first time I looked in the mirror and I felt like I knew who I was. All of my life I struggled with looking in the mirror and being one way, and then in my heart and in my soul and in my spirit being another way. And so that was the first time that I had ever looked in the mirror and I actually connected the two. And then it just grew from there. I felt a lot of pressures early on because as the social media era started to come about, so many transgenders were getting surgeries and, was turning themselves into full women, and they were, just becoming these beautiful creatures that I was seeing on a regular basis. But I always struggled with that because I never ever thought that God made a mistake with me. I love who I am and I love who I was created to be, and I feel like that is the beauty of glamour, to be able to create things on the surface and to be able to create yourself in a way that you see yourself with not losing who you are so deep. And so my journey thus far has always been about, still being able to be me. I do not want to be put into a box. I have never liked categories. I have never really taken the time to sit down and really associate myself with any community or really put myself in a box of a transgender or any sort of label, because of the fact that I have always just genuinely been me. And I believe that being your authentic self is the most important thing in life. I believe that being authentic and understanding where you come from, who you are, where you're going, is the forever journey. And no one else's opinions about you or no one else's thoughts of what you should be or how you should be matters, because they're going to live their life. They're going to live their life at the end of the day, and you're going to go and live your life, and when you close that door, you will be miserable living for others. And so I was very blessed to be taught self-love very young growing up in my house, even though I struggled with coming out and being honest about my truth and what I was dealing with. I was always taught to love myself no matter what. So with the transgender thing, I've always tread lightly with the title, and I've always tread lightly with even identifying myself as that, because to me, I'm Jai. I really genuinely have just always been who I am, and I don't really think that any society can put me into a box.
So, with that being said, whenever I think of the term transgender,
Okay.
I always feel like it's two words, and the trans part is transition, and the other part is gender.
Yes.
Which takes my mind on a journey that you're on a journey.
Yes.
And there's no definition to that, right?
I love that.
And it sounds like what you're saying is that you're not on a journey, you're at your destination of who you are.
So that's the thing. Because I have not reached what my full potential of my journey yet is with transgender, I can honestly not sit here and say that my journey is complete. I don't know if further down the line I will move forward into transitioning forward fully, or if I will stay here with where I am. But I do know that I walk in the path of what I genuinely feel God has for me, and as of right now, God has not placed on me to change anything about my body parts or anything about myself that isn't of what I was created with. Right now, I am very, very comfortable in my own skin. I feel very blessed in the life that God has given me. And I genuinely look in the mirror and love who I am. So for me, I haven't reached that mark yet, but I'm not here to exit out and say that that is not for me. I'm not here to say that it isn't for me. And I think that people that have done it are beyond courageous. You know, I look up to them. I think it's a beautiful thing. I celebrate it in the most highest form. And I'm so glad to see my community moving forward and being more out and open and enjoying and loving who they are and no longer being apologetic for who we are. Because the reality is we are just like anyone else. And I believe that if more people took the time to love people for who they are inside, and if more people took the time to get to know people before they pass judgment, then you would really be able to surround yourself with better circles of friends, better circles of family, better circles of people that you invite into your world, because you're picking people off of their real character and not what they have, what they look like, you know, or who they date, who they sleep with. Because at the end of the day, I've always felt that who people decide to sleep with really is no one's business. That is genuinely something that belongs to you. But we live in a world where now our lives are exploited in all ways, shapes, or forms. So, you know, I just feel like you have to look into the soul of the person first before you make a judgment of the appearance on the outside. Because for myself, I have always lived my life in a very normal life. I think just like any other woman would think, and my husband treats me just as like any other husband would treat a wife, and I treat him in the same manner. So I genuinely think that this stigma of putting us apart in these boxes and categories has to come to an end. And that is my journey. My journey is here to show that we are just like you, and we deserve a seat at the table just like the regulars. Long are the days where it's like, oh, you're transgender, so we have to put you in the box of a transgender path. We have to put you in the box of that is your only audience, your only category. No, we belong in every seat, in every table that any person that is straight, that is any race, that is intelligent, that has the know-how and the talent to do what they're doing, we belong at that table.
So I want you to talk more about that, because you spoke to your marriage, you spoke to realistically people's norms being very personal, and that there really is no true norm. So I'd like to talk about what your norm is.
Okay.
What is your lifestyle look like in comparison to, and maybe as adjacent to that of someone that's straight?
Yes. So my lifestyle adjacent to someone that is straight is exactly the same. My husband and I, we have been together now 10 years. We have been married for 3 years. My husband and I fell in love at a very trying time for both of us. Both of us were very young, and we were coming out of a lot of traumas. So my husband and I, we healed together, and we loved each other through everything that we were going through. And nothing about our marriage or anything that we have gone through is not of anything that anyone else has gone through. Me being a hairstylist, I speak with women every day, and I shed advice and I give light on marriage and love and wisdom from being in relationships. And I genuinely, there is no gap. There is no difference in anything that we go through in life. And I think that, you know, I would like to see more of people in my community be able to have a love that I have been blessed with to have. And I think that we cannot do that because of the fact that we feel so isolated.
I am grateful to have been loved and to be loved now and to be able to love, because that liberates. Love liberates. It doesn't just hold. That's ego. Love liberates.
I feel that love, no matter the gender or who you choose to love, is the hardest thing that we'll ever do in this lifetime. And I genuinely feel like everybody, no matter the gender in a relationship, can learn from relationships because they're all the same. And we all search for the same things in life. We want to be respected. We want to be loved. We want someone that is there at the end of the day, whether it's rough or whether it's going and we're celebrating. We want to genuinely know that we have a friend at the end of the day and someone that is on our side. And so I believe that in this generation, it is no longer a gay thing or straight thing when it comes to relationships. I think that relationships are in trouble, period. I think that the youth, and I think that this new age of how we date, how we view our lovers, how we treat ourselves, and how we treat others in our space has become a real trying topic for this generation. People don't know how to come out on the other side of the fire. And I believe that you have to walk through the fire and come out on the other side. People do not understand what it takes to really genuinely be there for someone anymore. We have so many options now. You know, we have DMs. We have so many ways to communicate with people that we don't even know. You know, we are now in this place where people are disposable. And I think that is the most dangerous thing that has ever been created in this new age way of living life. Because to love someone, you have to pull through all the layers. And a lot of those layers will be ugly, and a lot of those layers are deep, and a lot of those layers are traumatized, and a lot of those layers are disturbing, and someone has to love you through that. Because our love is genuinely a mirror for ourselves. The greatest accomplishment I ever had in my life was getting married. I believe that my husband was the mirror for me to really see myself in a way that I did not see myself. I went through life thinking that I knew everything. I'm a Taurus, I'm an earth sign. I always thought that because I was raised well, I did well. And the reality is that was not always the case. And my husband being that mirror for me really allowed me to see myself in ways that I would have never saw myself. I genuinely think that loving someone else is the closest reflection of God. Our children, we will always love because our children belong to us, but your lover does not belong to you. And a lover genuinely teaches you the tools, gives you the tools, and teaches you what it is that you need to know to further your heart, your mind, your space, your soul, and teach us that we are imperfect, but with time and with patience and with the right healing, we do find perfect peace. We find perfect peace here on earth. Okay, my mother, I am a second generational hairstylist. My mother was a hairstylist for 17 years. So when I was little, I was raised in the salon. I was on the salon floor very, very young. So my earliest memories is women in the chair getting their hair done, you know, beauty around me all the time. But my mother hit very troubled times because her and my father's marriage took a turn when I was born. My father cheated on my mom and had a baby at the same time that I was born, and it sent my mother into a spiral depression. By the time I was 4 years old, my mother was fully strung out on drugs. and my grandparents took me and raised me and my sister, and so I always struggled with seeing my mother and her addictions, and then I always yearned for my mother's love and for my mother to be there in her right frame of mind. But with my grandparents, I had a beautiful home. They gave me everything. They always put me in positions to win. They taught me to think. They taught me to walk in the room and hold my head up and be who I am and love myself regardless. So even though I knew I was different at a very young age, I mean, as early as I can remember, I knew that I was different. My grandparents advocated for me to embrace that very young. So this is where I go back to my days in my pages of Vogue magazine. Vogue magazine at Harper's Bazaar was the moment where I genuinely first became a kid. I feel like I was not a kid before I opened up a Vogue at Harper's Bazaar. When I opened up a Vogue at Harper's Bazaar, it changed my life in a way where I went into a fantasy that was beyond. It woke me up in the morning. It kept me up at night. It was just something that was so exciting for me. And so I genuinely knew very, very young what my calling in life was. That love and that passion and that purpose that I found in the pages of Vogue magazine and Harper's Bazaar was something that I just knew I could not live without. So as I got older and as I grew, I worked hard and I was self-taught in mostly everything that I did. I went to hair school, I went to fashion school, but I never connected with the side of the books of it all. I always connected with being hands-on. I genuinely believe that beauty is something that cannot be taught. I believe that being a creator and an artist is something that cannot be taught. You have to have it. Even if you don't know you have it and you end up having it later in life, it's something that was always inside of you. I just was a person that had it from birth. Like, I loved it. I breathe it. It's something that I have to have in my life. And so for building businesses, for most people, it's been, I built a brand, I built a business, but for me, it's just literally doing what I love and living my purpose. I genuinely believe that in life, we have to go with where the love is. We have to go with what keeps us breathing and what makes us feel excited about each day that we wake up. As much pain that I have endured in my life, I have been able to push through those things and heal through those things because I always found purpose in beauty. Beauty has been the building blocks for me to finding myself and to understanding that through beauty I can create whatever I want to create. Through beauty I make other women feel amazing. Through beauty I create a world that will always be needed. This pandemic has really tore our spirits down and has really took the glamour out of things, and I genuinely believe that where there's no glamour, there's depression. And that is why I do what I do every day. I love hair just as much as I love cooking, and I would never leave hair or beauty because that is the makings of me. Cooking is just as beautiful as glamour is. I feel that what we eat, we put in our bodies. I feel that when you create a plate and you give it to someone, it's like the greatest gift. I find romance in the beauty world, and I think that life is a romantic story. I think that life is a romantic story that we continue to write, and we continue to find ourselves and our passions and push our bodies and push our minds and push our talents further. It shows us the capacity that God sees us at. And I genuinely feel like we speak through art. We speak through words, even for people that really aren't artistic. You know, I feel that there's something in your space, something in your world that only you can do, or something that if you continue to work at and do, you will become really great and will make you notice. I believe that art comes in so many different shapes and forms, and I just have lived in the world of art all of my life. And that is the only world that I know, and it's the only world that I will ever be able to be a part of. I started putting weaves in my girlfriend's hair at literally the age of 11 years old. I was begging their mothers to let them wear heels and buy them this and buy them that. You know, we were very much fashion driven, very young. We were in a world of fantasy all the time. Of course, boys came into play. But for me at that time, because I wasn't out with myself, I was more embraced in my friends' homes and allowed myself to be free creatively in my friends' homes more than my own home at that time. I was not ready to show my family the talents that I had and show my family, you know, what my true passions were coming up in school. School was a safe place for me. I did not start having real troubles in school until I got into high school, and I started to feel like I wanted something bigger than going to class every day. But through school, I had a really, really great experience. I had really good friends around me. And I was blessed that even though I was different, that I was always very well received. I was always protected within my friendships. So I could say that I was very blessed in that aspect. Throughout my career, I endured a lot of failures. Failure is what taught me to be to be perfect at what I do, and to really be confident walking in a room to show my talents. In my early days where I was building and I had nothing, that was the exciting part. It was the exciting part for me every day to wake up and figure out how to get to where I was trying to go. I started off as a designer first. I was designing gowns. My grandmother bought me a sewing machine. I let that sewing machine sit there for literally a year. And my girlfriend was at my house one day and I had all this fabric, I had the sewing machine, and she got up and said, "Jay, when are you going to start to sew?" And I pulled the fabric and the pattern out and I put the pattern on the floor and I looked at the pattern and I said, absolutely not, I'm not doing this. And I just started wrapping fabric around her and I just started cutting and I just started creating, and 3 hours later we had a mini dress, and it just sparked something inside of me that was like beyond. I knew at that moment that not only did I have what it took, but I knew that I didn't want to do anything else. And so around the clock, 24 hours, I started to sew, I started to create, I started to make with my hands and with my dress form, straight to the body, on the woman, not using any pattern. And it was such a great moment in my life. I think that that probably was like my greatest run in beauty, was designing. But then a tragedy came and my house caught on fire and I lost my entire sewing factory. Wow. So when I lost my entire sewing factory, I felt like God had just snatched everything from me. And that was a very heavy time for me. I went into a very deep depression and I did not know how to start over. I did not know how to start over. And I had done so well with designing and I had really started to make a great name for myself, and I just had lost so much invested, that I genuinely did not know how to start over. And that is where hair came into play. I always did hair. I had started doing hair at 11 years old. By high school, I was doing all of my friends' hair in school, and it was like my little side money to go and shop. And so when I came home from college, my grandmother said, well, you have to do something. So I went to hair school. And hair for me at the time was not my first love. But it was something that I had under my belt that I knew I could do and I could always make money with. But it was not genuinely what I thought my calling was. So when my house burned down and I had to start all over from scratch, I started doing hair just to make money and survive and take care of myself. And so the hair just took off. I started getting a big clientele. I started making a name for myself. I decided to go into the salon. I went on the salon floor and then it just took off. And then I fell in love with it how I was in love with designing. It was like a new space for me. It was like something where every day I woke up, I knew my books, I knew my clients, I was excited to go in and I was excited to create new things and do new things. And so that was like really the turning point for me as an entrepreneur. When I was designing, I was making a lot of money and I was doing very well, but I was so young and just an artist, I really didn't understand what making money was. I didn't understand, really the dynamic of building a brand and a business. I just wanted to be an artist. But when I got into doing hair is where I really started to learn the steps of becoming an entrepreneur and building a brand and really knowing what it takes to keep that brand going. And so hair has now took a very special space in my heart. I really love doing hair. I love connecting with women every day. I love being over your head and being able to feel your energy and being able to know that, you know, when you get up out this chair and you go home, you feel like you can conquer the world. And the fact that I am a second generational hairstylist, you know, I just feel like my subconscious mind took me into the salon because I grew up in a salon and it just was only right to be in a salon. So, you know, that's those funny little moments about life that God has a vision for us beyond what we think that we have for ourselves. And a lot of times I think that we get so gun-ho in what we think that we want for ourselves, and we don't allow God to speak and to move and to create the way for us to find ourselves. I have genuinely, at 33 years old, found myself in every department and pocket that I have gone into and made a space for J. Simon the brand. What to expect from Champagne and Cuisine is about to be an explosion of everything we love. Family, friendship, food, fashion, conversation. I mean, it's just like basically a blog brought to you on video. It is great food, recipes, how to cook, conversation with amazing people, thought-provoking people. I am working very hard to give a platform that I feel like you can tune in weekly, you can tune in multiple times a week and feed your soul. Feed your soul. Feed your soul. Go in your kitchen and cook with your family. Go in the kitchen and cook for yourself and have a great dinner. Then go to the conversation side and see what we're talking about and how we can pour into you for that time and that day, that topic. You know, Champagne and Cuisine is a platform that has not yet been done, but it's the innovation that is needed for a time where we need a lot of positivity in our spirits and in our souls. And I think what better way than the number one thing that nurtures us, and that's food. And conversation just brings that comfort into your household to make you think again and make you feel again and make you want to go out here and take on or start over. A lot of us will have to start over, you know, coming out of this pandemic. And I feel like the conversations and the things that we're going to bring to the show, I think is going to kind of give us a know-how and show you just how we're all struggling. We're all trying to figure it out and we're all trying to become better. And I just am so excited to see the feedback and to see, you know, what you all can pour into me and to see what you all take from Champagne and Cuisine and how you can take it and make it amazing and just enjoy it and share it with everyone. Favorite moment thus far for me in recording Champagne and Cuisine, I would have to say is my team. I genuinely believe that anything that is great, anything that is worth doing, anything that is worth investing in has to start with a great team. It has to start with a great team. It has to end with a great team. I mean, your team is what builds you. No one does it alone. And I have really, really found myself in this new passion through my team. I feel like talking with my team, having team meetings and putting together ideas and to see how the ideas go over and beyond what I can imagine, I think has been the most motivating side of everything. Secondly, has been just cooking with you all. I love to cook. Being in my kitchen and cooking and just creating good meals. I mean, I do that on a daily, and to be able to do it on camera and give it to you all and for you all to be able to do it with your families, I just hope that it grows a love that it grew for me. And what it did for me, starting to cook on the level that I cook and doing it in my home so often, is that it genuinely made relationships around me so much stronger. I started to send out invites more. I started to have, you know, functions in my home more. I started to notice that my husband would be excited to come home from work to a hot cooked meal. You know, it just really opened up a lot of things in my life and made a lot of relationships closer for me. So I genuinely want to give you that gift and pray that you continue to share the gift. I pray that Champagne and Cuisine is the gift that keeps on giving.
Okay. And then last but certainly not least, we've talked about the inspiration, what to expect, and your favorite moments thus far. Where we headed?
Where we are headed with Champagne and Cuisine is hopefully, through all of you, hopefully, to somewhere larger than what I could imagine. To be honest, I've never really been in the business of predicting my future because I walk in I walk in true faith and strength of what God has for me. But what I want to see come from Champagne and Cuisine is the connection between myself and you all. And for us to grow into something so amazing that I get to just make some new friends, and I get to come into your households and see, you know, what it is that you all create, and to see how these conversations can provoke something in your home and allow you to become a better person. The future of Champagne and Cuisine is to go in a place of the masses and to be able to be shared with anyone, no matter the race, no matter the sex, no matter what divides us. I want us to all come together on this platform, and I want us to create something together. I don't want to do this one by myself. I want to do this one with you all.
I think that's it. Yeah.
It's a wrap.